Election 2020 in Oklahoma among the states competing in the Super Tuesday contest. Good evening from the Oklahoman's video studio. I'm Dave Morris. We'll recap the presidential race tonight on the Republican and Democrat side. We'll also look at two other races that voters across Oklahoma, and specifically in Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma County area, participated in. Here to join me in this discussion, Oklahoman, Chris Casteel, Kayla Branch, and Bill Crum. Everybody, welcome into the studio and thank you for your time.
Thanks,
Chris,
Bill.
we'll start with you. A third of the delegates needed to secure that Democratic presidential nomination. Up for grabs nationwide. Joe Biden took Oklahoma.
Took Oklahoma, 5 other states at 9 p.m. Central Time, all in the South, if you consider Virginia a southern state, and I guess you should. And it looked like Sanders had 2, it looked like, Utah, Vermont, I guess 3 Colorado as well. Bloomberg, I think Bloomberg won American Samoa.
Yes.
And so a big night for Biden. There's still some really big prizes out there. The last I looked for, I came in here, Sanders is leading Texas. Sanders is expected to win California. Those are the two.
Those are the two big prizes coming
tonight.
into tonight,
Right.
and perhaps Sanders was expected to do well in California. As you mentioned, Texas, a bit of a toss-up between those two. What did you see tonight?
Well, I saw there was some interesting exit polling. I mean, obviously a lot of this vote broke late. You had Klobuchar, Amy Klobuchar, and Pete Buttigieg get out Sunday and Monday, respectively, and people scrambling to find alternatives to them and they were in the same lane basically as Biden. And according to an exit poll of people in the Democratic primary in Oklahoma, 47% of those people who made up their mind in the last few days went for Biden. So he got the big number, which isn't surprising because a lot of those people who had to make up their minds would have been, supporters of people who had dropped out.
Do you think South Carolina had that much of an influence, perhaps?
South Carolina has a big influence.
He had the big win there Saturday.
And a huge win in a state that's more representative demographically of the Democratic Party. And I was just talking to Tom Cole, the congressman from Oklahoma, recently about the first Super Tuesday, 1988. And Bush won, George H.W. Bush and Bob Dole on the Republican side were just neck and neck. And after South Carolina, the Saturday before Super Tuesday, Bush won South Carolina, Bush won Oklahoma. So it really is, South Carolina has a lot of influence.
That is the expertise you can find from the Oklahoman. This gentleman right here who's been covering politics for a long time, and you can find his coverage on Oklahoman.com tonight. You saw some footage there that our colleagues over at USA Today were streaming tonight, and more coverage, of course, can be found on our website, Oklahoman.com and USA Today. We'll deal in Kayla Branch now. Several counties across the state were taking the next step, as you wrote, in modernizing their liquor laws. Kayla's like, this sounds really familiar, Dave. I think I just wrote that. I'm looking at your story. Oklahoma County among those, and then 6 other counties, and handily approved.
Yeah, so in the closest race, it still passed by a margin of about 12 points. And there were, like you said, 7 different counties that were voting on this. So Cleveland, Kingfisher, Creek, Muskogee, Washington, Tulsa, and Oklahoma counties all voted on this. We're still waiting on final numbers from Oklahoma and Tulsa counties, the 2 largest counties in the state. But it's looking like it's going to pass in Oklahoma County. Specifically, we're at about 70% yes votes and over 100,000 voters so far.
And so what does this change? What is this?
Yeah, so basically
I mentioned liquor laws, but what does that mean?
Right, well, so it just allows liquor stores in the counties that are voting on this, because each of Oklahoma's 77 counties has to vote on this separately. So it allows liquor stores in those counties to operate on Sundays if they want, and they can set their own hours, they can decide to stay closed, but it gives them that option, and which really comes after, in recent years, the state has been modernizing its liquor laws. It allowed grocery stores and convenience stores to sell wine and beer, and they can sell those on any day of the week, and that's kind of where liquor stores owners came in and
said, hey, this is a little unfair, right?
Exactly.
In an earlier segment, I mentioned, hey, if it does pass, would go into effect right away. You rightly point out in your article, hey, votes have to be tallied. It could be a week or two before this goes into effect.
Exactly, and people are really excited. I'm getting a lot of interaction on Twitter with people cheering, and that my county did it. We can get a bottle of vodka on a Sunday if we want it. So people are excited.
Bloody Marys.
Yeah.
Bloody Marys, those have changed. I mentioned some other action that residents across the state were voting on. And Bill, you cover city council. The race you're covering today was this 1/8 cent city sales tax measure to fund municipal park improvements, talking about parks and rec centers. And Bill, it looks like this may not pass.
Doesn't look like it. It is a citizens initiative. You don't see very many of those in Oklahoma City. There have been 5 since 1930. This one qualified for the ballot with 6,499 valid signatures. It would fund parks programs, after-school programs, so on and so forth, with a permanent 1/8 cent sales tax, as you mentioned. At this hour, it was barely squeaking by in Oklahoma County, but the suburban voters in Cleveland County and Canadian County pretty much sunk.
Yeah, I'm looking at these results, and according to the election website here in Oklahoma, 94% complete. It's 53% voting no against that proposition. Any surprise here, or what was the thought coming into this of how this vote might go?
I'm naive, but a little bit surprised, I think, because Councilman Ed Shadid, who left the council a little over a year ago, sponsored the initiative campaign. And he had polled a number of questions last spring. One of them was this very question, and it polled somewhere in the range of 70% yes. So it looked good then. Since then, there's been a MAPS 4 vote.
I was about to say, do you think there was any effects of that, MAPS 4, and this coming on the heels of that?
That passed with 72%. It had $140 million for parks in it, including $63 million for neighborhood parks. Questions certainly that were asked early on after the council went ahead, as it had to do by state law, and scheduled the initiative for a vote, revolved around, didn't we just pass this in MAPS? Why are we doing this again?
One last thing on this. When I was driving earlier today, I think I saw some billboards. There was some money that came
There was some money that came in the last week or 10 days that opposed it. I talked to Councilman Pete White, former Councilman Pete White, who ran the campaign to try to pass the initiative tonight. And one of the things he said to me was, it's not too difficult to beat a tax. And somebody came in, we don't know who, with a bunch of money, and ran ads, billboards, as you said.
I think they were doing robocalling too.
Mm-hmm.
I think just the whole 9 yards to try to defeat it. It was 1/8 of a cent. It would have raised $13 million for parks. The Parks and Recreation Department has about a $26 million budget. So it would have been a 50% increase, would make quite a difference in Oklahoma City parks.
You can find more coverage from this gentleman, Mr. Bill Crum, every day in Oklahoma, and of course online at Oklahoman.com, including coverage from City Hall. You mentioned the whole 9 yards, and Chris, I'm going to go out with you on this. Mike Bloomberg, of the presidential candidates, he visited Oklahoma perhaps the most, 3 times. And we were talking about those ads and billboards. We saw a lot of Mike Bloomberg ads.
Every kind of ads. Plus, he had a ton of paid staff here.
For a very successful
2 dozen,
businessman. He had paid staff in Samoa, as it turns out.
No
not really good ROI.
Yeah. I'm not going to do the math on the per vote, because it was actually hard to add up exactly. I mean, they would have to tell you, I think, by state how much he spent, but it's just, I would say in the millions here. On TV and digital advertising, and I
asked that question.
It just didn't work out, I mean, it's not an electorate, a Democratic primary electorate that you can see, wanting to vote for a billionaire, especially when You know, and plus and a former Republican. But especially when you have two of the leading candidates, Sanders and Warren, just bashing him,
Yeah.
you know, repeatedly. And he was terrible in one of the debates, mediocre at best in the other. I mean, he had everything stacked against him, despite, you know, the $500 million he spent nationwide on this.
And so I asked that question to springboard us finally into what happens next, do you see, from the Democratic crowd at this point? Bloomberg apparently is going to stay in this, but does Warren?
I don't think either of them stay in, really. There's no reason for him to. Warren's money, you know, I'm sure every dollar has been hard to come by for her ever since even New Hampshire. There's no way for her to stay in this, no matter what she says. I mean, she's just not going to have the money. She's not going to have the support. The resources will move elsewhere to Sanders and Biden. From her supporters, probably mainly Biden. And
right.
for Bloomberg, I mean, it just starts to look, you know, kind of. People just wonder what you know, you gave it your best shot, it didn't work out. This was where you focused, Super Tuesday states, didn't work out. You know, it's probably the best time for you to
An interesting
put your money
experiment.
somewhere else. Yeah.
Plenty of that money, too.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for this wrap up. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Dave Morris here in the Oklahoman's video studio, joined by Chris Casteel, Kayla Branch, Bill Crum, Todd Frazier, Paige Dillard back in the control room. You can find more results, stories, photos, videos, and that feed from USA Today as a recap on our website at oklahoman.com. Good evening, everyone.